There's something strange about respect. It's never taken away all at once. Instead, it erodes slowly, quietly, and without warning. No one ever looks you in the eye and says, "I don't respect you anymore." But suddenly, their gaze shifts. The warmth in their voice fades. Conversations that once flowed naturally begin to dry up into silence. They stop seeking your opinion, stop making space for your presence, and one day you realize you've become a shadow, fading into the background. The saddest part? You didn't do anything seriously wrong. You didn't betray anyone or hurt someone intentionally. But still, the respect begins to slip away like sand through your fingers, softly but irreversibly. Why does this happen? Because respect isn't built only on grand gestures. It can be quietly destroyed by small, repeated habits, the ones that seem harmless but slowly chip away at how others see you. Maybe it's venting a little too often just to feel better, showing up a few minutes late thinking no one will notice, or talking about someone behind their back when they're not around. Maybe it's choosing silence over confrontation, or accepting less than you truly deserve. Each of these little moments on their own might not break a relationship, but when they stack up, they fracture trust, and once trust begins to crack, respect has nowhere left to stand. We live in a time where visibility feels like everything. But the truth is, what makes people truly remember you isn't what you say, it's how you live, how you stay disciplined, and most of all, how you treat yourself. You can't expect others to respect you if you're unconsciously sabotaging that respect through your daily actions. But you don't need to shout to be heard or act tough to be seen. You just need to stop doing the things that quietly invite others to overlook you and start changing the smallest habits that hold you back. This video isn't here to make you feel guilty, it's here to wake you up, to shine a light on the seemingly harmless behaviors that may be quietly pushing you out of people's hearts. It's a guide to help you reclaim your place in the world, starting with what you can control. In this journey, we'll break down 7 specific behaviors, habits that silently eat away at the respect others once had for you, and more dangerously, corrode your own self-respect from within. As the Stoic philosopher once said, "Don't waste time debating what a good person should be. Just be one." Marcus Aurelius. If you want to become someone worthy of respect, you don't have to be perfect. You just need to remove what's quietly making you small. Let's begin with the first one. 1. Gossiping. Talking about others destroys your credibility. You don't need to betray someone to lose their respect. Sometimes, all it takes is talking about someone when they're not around just once. It might seem harmless, maybe even casual, just a quick comment, a light remark disguised as sharing. But that alone can be enough for people to start seeing you differently. Gossip doesn't always show up wearing a toxic mask. Often it sneaks in as a moment of venting, a heart-to-heart, a seemingly innocent conversation. You might think you're just stating facts, that it's not gossip, you're just relieving some stress, or maybe even warning someone. But the truth is, people won't just hear what you're saying, they'll also notice what it reveals about you, that you're capable of speaking this way about someone who isn't here to defend themselves. And once they notice that, they start wondering, will I be your next topic when I'm not around? They might not say anything. They'll still smile, still nod, still carry on the conversation. But the doubt has already been planted. And from that moment on, trust starts to crack. No argument is needed. No confrontation, just a flicker of suspicion, and respect begins to fade. The sad thing is, gossip often doesn't come from a place of malice, it comes from a desire to connect. There's something oddly bonding about sharing something negative about someone else. It makes you feel like you're in the know, part of something, included. But the cost of that temporary closeness is the lasting trust others once had in you. Every time you tell a story that's not yours, you trade your integrity for a moment of attention. Every time you point out someone else's flaws, you unknowingly chip away at your own image. People might not call you out for it, but they'll start pulling back. They'll create distance, and they'll become more careful about what they share with you. Because once they're unsure you can hold their stories in confidence, they won't share them at all. And if they can't trust you, they won't respect you either. No one wants to be the subject of discussion the moment they walk away. No one feels safe next to someone who always has a story to tell about someone else. And no one will offer opportunities to someone they quietly suspect isn't trustworthy. So ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to be in the eyes of others? The one who makes people feel safe when they open up, or the one who makes them cautious even they expert? The one they trust with the little things, or the one they silently keep at arm's length? The answer doesn't lie in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. You don't have to tear others down to show you have standards. You just need to draw a clear boundary. Don't talk about people who aren't present. Don't turn someone's life into your entertainment, and don't sacrifice one relationship to build another. When someone starts gossiping in front of you, you don't need to scold them or shut them down loudly. A gentle response is enough. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that if they're not here. Or simply, let's drop it, tell me something fun instead. You don't have to be the party killer, you just don't have to play along. The right silence is a form of strength. It protects others and it protects you. It says you know what's worth preserving, what's not worth continuing, and what matters enough for you to choose stillness over the noise. The world is full of people who know how to talk. What's rare is someone who knows when to stop. Someone who makes others feel safe. Someone who walks out of the room and still carries the trust of those who stayed behind. And that's the kind of person who earns real respect. 2. Passive aggression. When silence and sarcasm push people away. No one respects someone who always leaves them guessing. The more you stay silent when something's wrong, the more people begin to lose trust. And once that trust is gone, respect disappears with it. Passive aggression often hides behind sarcastic remarks, cold "I'm fine" responses, or long, unexplained silences. A person showing this behavior never expresses their true feelings directly, but instead reveals their frustration through distance, indifference, or half-joking tones. On the surface, they may appear calm, but in reality, they're manipulating the situation through ambiguity. You might think you're avoiding conflict, but in truth, you're just shifting the emotional burden onto others, forcing them to guess, to figure things out, to carry the weight of maintaining the connection. The problem is, no one wants to stay close to someone who constantly keeps them on edge. People might understand once, they might be patient twice, but if you keep hiding behind silence or sarcasm, by the third time, they'll pull away. Not because they stop caring, but because they stop respecting you. You can't grow if you don't learn to speak honestly. You can't build a healthy relationship if you always choose vague hints over clear communication. And you'll never be taken seriously if, every time something happens, you retreat into silence instead of taking responsibility for your emotions. Being direct isn't the same as being combative. Being honest doesn't mean being harsh. You can absolutely say, "I feel hurt," or "I need a little space," without damaging anyone. In fact, saying that shows the other person they're dealing with someone mature enough to speak the truth without playing games. Respect comes from clarity. No one respects someone who constantly makes them decode their feelings. So next time you're hurt, don't send a sarcastic message. When you disagree with something, don't just sigh and go quiet. When you're upset with someone, don't pretend you're okay, then punish them with distance. Speak up clearly but kindly. Act like someone who wants to be understood, not someone trying to stay in control. Because the truth is, if you keep making people read between the lines, eventually there won't be anyone left to read them. 3. Making excuses. Avoiding responsibility makes you smaller. No one respects someone who always has an excuse for every failure. You can be late, mess up, or fall short and people will still understand. But if every setback is followed by a justification, if every poor result is blamed on the circumstances, over time, people will stop believing in you, not because you failed, but because you refuse to own your part in it. Making excuses is a defense mechanism. You do it to avoid criticism, to protect your sense of "I'm not useless," or simply to avoid facing a bruised ego. But every time you fall back on excuses, you're unconsciously sending a clear message: I don't have control over my life, and I don't have the courage to take responsibility for it. The more you justify, the less trustworthy you become. People can forgive mistakes, but they don't trust someone who keeps dodging accountability. Because if you can't admit you were wrong, then you can't fix it. And if you're not willing to fix it, you don't deserve another chance. What's dangerous is that you might think you're just explaining. You might believe you're being honest, that you really were too busy that day, or that you didn't have enough information, or that support didn't come as expected. But the issue isn't whether your reason is valid or not. It's that you chose to shift the blame instead of owning your role. Every time you choose an excuse over admission, you miss a chance to build credibility. You leave the impression that you're good at talking but not at showing up, that you're quick to promise but slow to deliver, that you'd rather protect your ego than grow from your mistakes. A reliable person is someone who can admit when they're wrong, not because they're perfect, but because they're honest with themselves. And that honesty is what makes others feel safe trusting them, relying on them, or building something long-term with them. If you truly want others to respect you, it starts with taking responsibility. Say it out loud: I was wrong. Own it fully: I'll fix it. And commit to growth: next time I won't let it happen again. When you do that, you don't become weaker, you become stronger. You don't lose face, you gain respect. Because people don't need you to be flawless. They just need to know that when things fall apart, you won't run away. So next time you're about to give a reason, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, am I protecting my integrity or just avoiding accountability? If you tell the truth, you might lose a little pride, but you'll keep their trust. If you make an excuse, you might escape discomfort, but you're trading long-term respect for short-term relief. You can't grow if you don't own your mistakes. You can't move forward if you keep playing the victim. And you will never be truly respected if you keep hiding behind the shadow of your excuses. 4. Being chronically late. Being late damages your credibility faster than you think. Not everyone who shows up late gets harsh criticism, but when it happens repeatedly, people stop seeing it as a one-time mistake. They start seeing it as a reflection of who you are. And once they begin to believe you lack discipline or don't value other people's time, the respect they once had for you begins to fade. You might not say anything offensive or do anything visibly hurtful, but if you constantly arrive late, you're still sending a very clear message: my time is more important than yours. You don't need to say it out loud. Your actions are speaking for you, and they're speaking loudly. Even if your intentions are good, even if you think a few minutes don't matter, for the person who's waiting, that delay carries a message of being overlooked. They're not just losing time, they're losing the feeling of being respected. They might not bring it up, but with each repeated delay, their trust erodes bit by bit, and their frustration quietly builds. Someone who's chronically late doesn't just disrupt schedules, they disrupt trust. People begin to question your reliability. They'll stop giving you important responsibilities. They'll start expecting you to be late, not because you're incapable, but because they no longer trust you to show up when it counts. From being late, you'll quickly be labeled with heavier judgments: undisciplined, irresponsible, disrespectful. And once those labels stick, no amount of explanation or apology will feel convincing, because people don't judge you by your words. They judge you by the way you prepare not to need those words in the first place. You might think your reasons are valid: traffic, unexpected issues, losing track of time. And maybe the first time people will understand. Maybe the second time they'll stay patient. But by the third time, the cracks begin to show, not in the schedule, but in the relationship. Because by then, the issue isn't the excuse, it's the mindset. What are you prioritizing more, showing up prepared or showing up with an apology? People who are on time aren't less busy than you. They're just more committed to treating time as a promise to others. They plan ahead, anticipate delays, and most importantly, they understand that punctuality isn't just a nice habit, it's a mark of long-term reliability. If you want people to respect you, You don't have to be better than them or more impressive, you just have to show up when you said you would. No need for grand speeches or lengthy explanations. When you arrive on time, your professionalism and dependability walk in the room before you even say a word. Because being on time is a form of respect both for others and for yourself. It shows that you take your commitments seriously, that you act with discipline, and that you're someone others can count on. On the other hand, chronic lateness makes you seem unreliable no matter how talented or well-intentioned you are. So if you've been making excuses for running late, it's time to pause and take an honest look at yourself. Ask, have I really been valuing my promises? And am I putting my own comfort above other people's trust? Start small, go to bed earlier, plan more tightly, leave 10 minutes ahead of time. You don't need to change everything at once, just start treating punctuality as a non-negotiable standard, and you'll notice a clear shift in how people perceive you. Because in a world where everyone claims to be busy, the person who respects time stands out not because they have more of it, but because they keep their word and their standards. And that more than anything is what earns you respect, without you ever needing to ask for it. 5. Constant complaining. Chronic negativity pushes people away. No one respects someone who always sees the problem but never looks for a solution. It's completely human to have bad days, to feel exhausted, and to want to be heard. That's understandable. But if every time you show up you bring a complaint, and every conversation revolves around what's wrong in your life, people will slowly start to distance themselves, not because they're heartless, but because your energy drains them. Complaining is the fastest way to release tension, but also the quickest path to emotional distance. At first, people may listen because they care, but if the negativity keeps repeating itself without any sign of change, their patience will wear thin, and their respect will quietly fade. They don't hate you, they just no longer want to be dragged down with you. Chronic complainers aren't weak, they're just stuck in a loop of dissatisfaction. They see problems everywhere. The job isn't right. The relationship is disappointing. Even the weather becomes a reason to sigh. They always have something to be unhappy about, but rarely have a plan to change anything. That's what keeps them from being seen as strong or reliable. Instead, they come across as passive, unaccountable, and emotionally draining. The more you complain, the more sensitive you become to the negative, and when you sink into that mindset, you begin to lose your ability to notice what's still good. As a result, you don't just wear yourself out, you bring down the mood of everyone around you. People don't respect those who make them feel worse. After every conversation, they simply pull away. What's troubling is that many chronic complainers don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're sharing, venting, or just being real. But sharing is not the same as complaining, and being honest doesn't mean repeating the same issues with no intention to act on them. If you only talk, but never do anything, you're using your words to delay responsibility, and that, over time, chips away at your image. To earn respect, you don't have to fake positivity, but you do have to show that you're aware of your situation and that you're doing something about it. Instead of saying, I hate this job, ask yourself, what am I doing to improve it? Instead of saying, no one understands me, ask, have I communicated clearly and openly? The difference between someone who is respected and someone who is avoided isn't how many problems they have, it's whether they act on them or just repeat them. So if you catch yourself complaining too often, pause, not to suppress it, but to redirect it. Ask yourself, am I seeking understanding or just someone to dump on? Do I really want to change this, or am I just using complaints to put off action? People can empathize with pain, but they only respect those who rise from it. Strength doesn't mean never feeling tired. It means, even when tired, you remain proactive, turn emotion into action, and still bring lightness to you. Because in the end, your words don't just express how you feel, they shape how others see you. If you constantly radiate negativity, you'll be perceived as a negative person. But if you can share your struggles with clarity and responsibility, you'll be seen as someone mature, grounded, and trustworthy. And those are the kinds of people who truly earn respect. 6. Neglecting self-respect. When you stop respecting yourself, others will too. No respect from others can truly last if you don't respect yourself first. You can be kind, generous, and willing to keep the peace, but if your kindness comes at the cost of your dignity, if your giving makes you lose yourself, then eventually people stop seeing you as someone worth honoring. The more you tolerate poor treatment, the more others believe they have the right to treat you that way. Not because they're cruel, but because you've unconsciously taught them that you won't speak up, won't push back, and won't walk away, even when you're clearly being hurt. Self-respect isn't selfish, and it doesn't mean being inflexible. It's about setting clear boundaries, knowing what's acceptable, what's too much, and what should no longer continue. A person with self-respect doesn't always win, but they always know when it's time to stop, and they never let someone else define their worth. When you don't know how to say no, when you keep accepting things you don't deserve, when you stay silent in the face of disrespect, you're not being noble. You're making yourself invisible in your own life. And others cannot respect someone who doesn't have boundaries. They'll take advantage of your tolerance, dismiss your pain, and keep treating you as someone who'll put up with anything because you've shown them too many times that you will. If you want to be respected, you have to be the first to protect your own limits. You don't need to scream or fight back. All you need to do is step back, and stop pouring your energy into people or situations that don't deserve it. Self-respect isn't just about saying I deserve better, it's about living like you truly believe it. It shows in the company you keep, in how you respond to injustice, and in your ability to walk away when something has gone too far. If you've ever felt disrespected by others, don't rush to blame them. First ask yourself, have I truly respected myself? Am I living according to what I believe I'm worthy of? Am I holding my boundaries or constantly breaking them to please others? No one can walk over you unless you lie down. No one can look down on you unless you shrink yourself first. And no one can respect you genuinely if you keep trading your values just to maintain your place in their lives. The ones who are truly respected aren't always the most liked. They're the ones who know when to walk away, even if it means being alone. They don't need everyone's approval, but they will never trade their dignity to be accepted. Because in the end, respect doesn't come from how others treat you, it comes from what you allow. And you are the only one who gets to decide that. 7. Being inconsistent. When you're not consistent, you lose credibility. No one respects someone who says one thing today and does another tomorrow. You can be smart, charismatic, and make a strong first impression, but if your behavior shifts with your mood, your words carry no weight, and your commitments keep falling through, people will eventually stop trusting you. Respect isn't just built on promises, it's sustained by consistency. People won't track your every move, they simply need to feel that you're steady, clear, and reliable. Someone who's warm one day and distant the next. Who's enthusiastic today and completely absent tomorrow, forces others to constantly guess which version of you they'll get. And when trust is built on uncertainty, it won't last long. Inconsistent people rarely realize they're being inconsistent. They don't intend to be flaky, but a lack of emotional control, unclear personal standards, or a tendency to prioritize short-term feelings over long-term commitments causes them to unintentionally disappoint others again and again. And while each disappointment might be forgiven, after a few too many, trust has nowhere left to stand. You can explain, you can apologize, you can promise to do better, but if your behavior keeps repeating, if your actions don't match your words, everything you say eventually loses meaning. Not because people are harsh, but because they need certainty and trust. And you've slowly chipped away at that with your inconsistency. A trustworthy person isn't someone who never makes mistakes, it's someone whose mistakes are familiar and whose efforts to fix them are visible. They may not be more talented than you, but they understand this truth. Credibility doesn't come from doing everything right, it comes from others knowing what to expect from you. When you're consistent, you don't just build a professional image, you create emotional safety. People feel more at ease communicating with you, working with you, and connecting with you, because they know who you are today will still be who you are tomorrow. So if you want people to respect you, don't start with grand promises. Start with stability. Don't try to impress with big gestures, just speak less, follow through more, and keep your word. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be dependable. You don't have to change the world, but you do need to be consistent with what you stand for. You don't need to talk much, you just need to repeat the right behaviors long enough, and respect will come to you without having to ask for it. Because in the end, the most respected people aren't the loudest, they're the most reliable, the most repeatable, the most consistent. And from that foundation of trust, real respect begins to grow. Respect doesn't come from your appearance. It doesn't come from your title or from trying to please everyone around you. It comes from what you repeat every single day and how you speak, how you keep your word, how you act when no one is watching, and how you treat yourself. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to prove yourself to be acknowledged. You just need to stop doing the things that quietly cause others to lose faith in you. Let's revisit the 7 questions you've just heard. Are you talking behind people's backs? Are you staying silent instead of speaking honestly? Are you making excuses instead of owning your actions? Are you showing up late, avoiding responsibility, complaining too often, or letting go of your self-respect? And most importantly, are you repeating behaviors that make people unsure of who you really are? If the answer is yes, don't panic. This isn't the end, this is the beginning. Because the most powerful thing about respect is this: you don't need permission to earn it. It's not in anyone else's hands. It starts with you, with the way you live, with discipline, with clarity, with consistency, and with honesty. Others will respect you the moment you start living like someone who deserves to be respected. No need to raise your voice. No need to explain. Just live right, repeat what's right, and be brave enough to remove the behaviors that quietly make you small in other people's eyes. Because in the end, respect isn't something you demand. It's something you build day by day through the person you choose to become.